Welcome back. After being postponed for a year due to the COVID-19 pandemic, the Tokyo Olympic Games are set to kick off in less than a month. And just this week, it was announced that venues at the Games will allow 10,000 domestic spectators. Now, that's despite warnings from experts who say holding events without fans is the safest option. As Japan faced several states of emergency due to outbreaks in the nation, many called for the Games to be canceled. In fact, polls in April showed 70% of citizens did not want the Games to go ahead as planned. So why go ahead with the Games? Well, there are many reasons, but a big one, you guessed it, it's money. It is estimated that Japan will have spent as much as $35 billion to host the Games on a $7.5 billion budget. And organizers even say the delay ran the budget up by $3 billion. Along with that, there are huge money in global sponsorship deals and television rights for the Games. But that hasn't always been the case. Earlier, I spoke with Jon Wertheim. He's the executive editor at Sports Illustrated and author of Glory Days, The Summer of 1984 and the 90 Days That Changed Sports and Culture Forever. The book kind of weaves some of the biggest storylines of basketball, tennis, hockey, and boxing history with an overall arch about the 1984 Olympic Games. I started the conversation by asking him about the fact that some believe the '84 Games could be the last, with Newsweek even having a cover story asking, "Are the Games dead?"
In short, you had one individual say, we got to start treating this like a business. That was Peter Ueberroth. You're right. I mean, the Games just kind of go through the chronology. In '72, there was a horrible terrorism attack in Munich. In '76, you had these huge cost overruns in Montreal that Canada took them 30 years for Canada and Quebec and Montreal to pay this off. '80, there was a boycott. '84, people are thinking this may be it for the Olympic movement. And Peter Ueberroth said, look, we're not going to do what you just described going on in Japan. We're not going to have a huge investment in facilities. We're going to sell sponsorships. We're going to pit networks against each other, make them bid on these media rights deals. The Games had a profit, a surplus, and I think we talk about the Olympics in Tokyo, and no one's saying, oh, this is about the athletes and the gymnasts and the runners that should have one more chance to compete. It's all about the finances, and you can draw a direct line from that to 1984.
And how big was the television rights? I mean, we've seen this explode throughout sports over those last about 40 years. Is that one of the big angles that actually, not to say they went profitable, but they were able to break even and use some of that revenue for future Olympic Games and to compensate the people involved?
Yeah, it was TV. I mean, it was ABC Network that bid into 9 figures, which at the time was gargantuan. It pales in comparison to what NBC, of course, is paying now. But the other big thing was sponsorships. And the total Olympic sponsorship in 1980 Games in Lake Placid, the previous Olympics in the U.S., was about $10 million combined. Peter Ueberroth said, wait a second, we need fewer sponsors paying a lot more money. We're going to make it competitive. One of the very first bids was for beverages, and Coke and Pepsi squared off. Coke bid $12 million. So for one beverage sponsorship from Coke, it eclipsed the entire sponsorship of the previous Olympics in 1980, and it's only grown since then.
And I was going to say, I want to clarify again, to your point exactly. Now, those numbers might not seem huge by today's standards, but back then, that was huge money involved. Now, you also address a 1984 Supreme Court case regarding college football and television rights. And while the schools won the right to actually negotiate their own deals, there is a line in an opinion of the NCAA versus Board of Regents decision that actually states, quote, in order to preserve the character and quality of the product, athletes must be paid and must be required to attend class and the like. Why did this simple statement have such an impact preventing athletes from being compensated for those almost 40 years now?
Yeah, this was a Supreme Court case in summer of '84. It will have echoes to what's happened in the last few days, and this basically gave schools the right to negotiate their own TV deals. This was not Armageddon as the NCAA predicted. Again, parallels to today that we may want to consider, but there was a line, as you say, in the opinion, basically saying, these athletes need to be kept amateurs. College sports are about amateur athletics. And that was seized upon by the NCAA. And this was not a favorable ruling to the NCAA, but that one line of dictum, that one line of the opinion, the NCAA seized upon for, I would say, 37 years. And we can talk about recent events that may have appended that. But this was a Supreme Court decision in '84 that didn't get a lot of attention, but that would have a huge impact in the future of college sports for, really up until the present.
And that's exactly what I wanted to bring it to the news of this week, because is that no longer relevant, as we have seen the Supreme Court rule in favor of athletes receiving what they say is unlimited benefits tied to education, and the NCAA now pushing further into compensating these student athletes for name, image, and likeness rights?
Yeah, but we had it was not Justice Gorsuch who wrote the opinion, but you had Brett Kavanaugh writing in essentially a consenting opinion that listen, bring it on. Essentially, like, this is a fairly narrow ruling about paying for education and laptops and other sort of education-related expenses, but the door is definitely open for a broader reading and a broader challenge to the NCAA's cartel, to amateurism. I think it's going to be very interesting to see how schools, how broad they go in terms of these educational benefits that are now on the table. But you sort of have a sense that the iceberg is melting a little bit, and it'll be interesting to see if we can move the ball, no pun intended, from these educational benefits to outright compensation.
Well, and that's what I was going to bring up too, is with the name, image, and likeness rights that has been talked about, because the NCAA is actually, it looks like they're going to move forward to kind of have a uniform policy on that, and that's mostly due to statewide legislation that hasn't gone to the Supreme Court. Are they actually worried, do you think, about the Supreme Court weighing in on that? So they're just saying, let's take care of it now.
Yeah, I mean, what they say in their public statements might be very different from their private stance. I just think that you sort of play out this model, and we all understand that the revenue sport athlete, Alabama football team that generates, tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions of dollars, probably those are athletes that ought to be compensated. I think what's going to be really interesting is just to see where these dividing points are. And I think we all, most people, I think, agree. I know this. I mean, this is, empirically, most people feel like college athletes generating revenue should be compensated. I think what people don't always grasp is how sort of narrow this subset is. And there are, 95% of college athletes aren't in revenue sports. And some of the athletes in revenue sports aren't the money generator. So we talk about, we talk about name, image, and likeness, and we talk about compensation. And I think it's a pretty narrow band of athletes that this will impact.
Jon Wertheim, author of Glory Days, the summer of 1984, and the 90 days that changed sports and culture forever. Thank you so much.
Thank you. That was fun.